Hello, teacher.
Hello, Lucia. It's good to see you today.
It's also good to see you.
Okay, so we're going to get started now. It's a bit cold in Melbourne today, so I've got my scarf and all my warm jumpers on. So just to let everybody know what's happening with the lessons at the moment is that after today, then your next session, we're going to have a revision session where we're going to go over all of the topics that we have talked about so far. You will have a chance to ask me lots of questions to make sure that you understand everything. And then moving forward, each lesson will only focus on one topic. So these first few lessons have been kind of like your introduction with the base information that you need to know. So then you'll get your chance to ask questions and revise everything. And then moving forward, we will be able to focus on one topic at a time, and we will be able to go into a lot more detail about it. So you'll be able to understand everything a lot better. So let's get started for today. The topic of today's lesson is we want to learn about a few of the different roles that are involved in debating. So the topics for today are going to be the role of the interlocutor, which is one of the definitions we learnt in our first lesson together. We're going to talk about what the motion of a debate is in a bit more detail. And we're also going to discuss the proposition and the opposition of the debate and discuss a little bit more what they do. So a few basic definitions first. So our first word is the interlocutor, and the interlocutor is the person that makes sure that the judges follow the rules when they make the decision who wins and who loses the debate. So the interlocutor is kind of like the judge for the judges. So they're quite an important person. The motion, as we talked about in our first lesson, is the statement or the topic that is being debated. Now, that is different from the theme of the debate, which we talked about in the last lesson. And one of the main reasons that the motion is different is because it needs to be worded a particular way, and we're going to cover that in today's lesson. And then we have the two teams in the debate. So the first team is called the proposition. I don't know what you're eating, Lucia, but it certainly looks delicious. So the first team in the debate is called the proposition. And proposition is just a fancy way of saying the affirmative team, or the team that agrees with the motion. They are arguing for the motion of the debate. And they are competing with the opposition. And the opposition is just a fancy way of saying the negative team, or the team that disagrees with the motion of the debate. So our first topic to discuss will be the interlocutor and the motion. So, where are we here? Just making sure I've got my right document here. So let's talk about the interlocutor first. Now, the definition that we just discussed is the person who moderates the debate. So they make sure that all of the rules are being followed. And they ensure that a fair and organized discussion takes place. The reason for that, Jenny, is because I am relatively new to Zoom and I still haven't figured out some of the features. I'm a little bit slow with technology, but I'll figure it out and I'll have it changed for next lesson. I promise you that. So, the first responsibility of the interlocutor, actually, first, before we talk about that, does everybody understand the definition of the interlocutor that I've given? Everyone understands that? Just type it in the chat box for me, please. Just give me a yes or a no.
Can you say that again?
Absolutely. So does everybody understand the definition of interlocutor that we've just talked about?
No.
Okay. Well, good. Some people do. That's good. So the interlocutor is the person who makes sure that all of the rules are being followed. So they make sure that when the judge decides who wins and who loses, welcome Song Fer, it's good to have you. So the interlocutor makes sure that when the judges decide who wins and who loses, he makes sure that the judges follow the rules of deciding who wins and who loses. So the interlocutor is the person that basically judges the judges and makes sure that all of the rules are being followed. They're kind of like the law and order or the policeman of the debate. They make sure that all the rules are getting followed. And in doing that, oh, I've gone sideways all of a sudden. There we go. So in performing that job, the interlocutor has certain responsibilities that they have to make sure that they do. And some of those responsibilities include maintaining order and decorum during the debate. And what that means is that they make sure, so as well as making sure the judges are doing their jobs, they also make sure that the debaters on both teams, they make sure that they are speaking respectfully, that they are not, that they make sure that they're speaking respectfully. They make sure that the teams are debating properly. So by making sure that they argue with each other's arguments and that they don't start attacking the other team, they don't start saying things about the other team, that they stick to the points of the debate. So yeah, that's their first responsibility, making sure that everybody stays respectful and that they only argue the points of the debate and don't start attacking the other debaters. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Terrific. So yeah, because we have a lot of points to cover today, I'm going to be asking you that question a lot. So just send me a chat or just go on the mic and say yes or no. The next responsibility of the interlocutor is enforcing debate rules and speaking time limits. So obviously, because a debate is a structured conversation, it has to happen in a certain order. There are rules that go along with that, and the interlocutor makes sure that everybody follows those rules. And as well, one of those rules is that everybody gets a certain amount of time to speak. So everything that a debater needs to say, they need to be able to say it within that time limit. Usually, I think it's anywhere from about 3 to 5 minutes. And the interlocutor is the person that makes sure that people don't speak for longer than the time that they've been given. The next responsibility is kind of an extension of the one that we just talked about, but it is facilitating a balanced and unbiased discussion. And what that means is that the interlocutor needs to make sure that every debater gets the same chance and the same amount of time to speak, and that both teams get equal time to speak so that there's not more favor shown to one team than another. Everybody gets the same amount of time to speak. And the fourth responsibility is providing clarifications and managing any disputes. And what that means is that if anybody does not understand one of the rules, they're allowed to ask the interlocutor to explain the rule to them so that they understand it. And if the debate gets too heated and people start arguing and getting angry with each other, it's the interlocutor's job to make sure that that stops and everybody calms down and gets back on track, and basically that no one attacks anybody else through the debate. So yes, overall, the interlocutor is like the policeman of the debate. It's his job to make sure that all of the rules are being followed. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you, Star. Good. Okay, so the next topic that we want to talk about is the motion. And the motion is the statement or the topic being debated. Now, as I said before, there is a difference between the motion and the topic of the debate. So I'm just going to put now in the chat. So let's say that the topic of the debate is, I'm just going to pick one that we've used before. Should students be required to wear uniforms to school? So let's say that that is our topic. Should students be required to wear uniforms to school? Now, the motion is, the motion is basically the topic, but it needs to be worded as an affirmative statement. So we need to make sure that we say the motion in a way that supports the topic. So I'll give you an example of that. Who is iPhone? Bon, is that you?
I think iPhone is one of the parents. I just asked them to come here to help as the co-host. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Duc.
Hi, I'm the parent of David. I'm
Yes.
a teacher. Yes.
Hello. Welcome
Yeah.
to debate class.
Yes.
So, everyone, as we can see, if you go into the chat box, you'll see that you'll see the difference between the topic and the motion. So the topic is the actual subject that is being debated, and the motion is the affirmative statement about the topic. So they say the same thing, but the motion just needs to be worded in a specific way. And that way is most of the time will look like the motion that I have just put in the chat box. So it will usually start with this house believes, and then the affirmative team will state their motion. So this house believes that students should be required to wear school uniforms to school. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Excellent, good. So as we go on further through this course, you're going to get lots of chances to practice writing your motions. And so that is something that we will be talking about a fair bit, because it is quite an important part of the debate. So I have also prepared for you. I'm going to share my screen now. Well, at least in schools in Australia, we have two different uniforms. We have a uniform for winter that is mostly long pants and long jumpers, and we have summer uniforms, which tend to be shorts or skirts for the girls. So yeah, we have uniforms for both seasons, so we're still required to wear them. But I like that you're thinking about your arguments. Okay, so I have prepared this handout here that has some topics on it, and it shows the difference between the topic, the theme, and the motion. So we'll be able to discuss all three of those aspects. So let's go here. So if we have a look at topic number 3, school vouchers. Now, in America, a school voucher is a voucher that the government gives to families to allow them to choose which school their students go to. So they can pick one that is close to their home, or they might be able to pick one that's a bit further away, but it offers the students and their families the chance to pick where the students go to school. So if the topic of the debate is school vouchers, that would make the theme of the debate the education system. Because remember from our last lesson where we discussed that the theme is like the broader category of the topic. So there can be many different topics that share the same theme. So for example, another topic with the theme of the education system could be, should students have recess every day? So it's a completely different topic to school vouchers, but it's still the same theme of the education system. Now, now that we've discussed the topic and the theme, we can have a look at the motion. So if the topic is school vouchers, the motion, like we said, has to be worded in a certain way. The motion would be said as, this House believes that school vouchers should be implemented to enhance educational choice. So the motion is agreeing with the topic, and it says that the House believes that school vouchers should be used to give students a bigger choice of schools to attend. And if we have a look at our next topic, internet privacy. So the theme for internet privacy would be technology and ethics. So ethics is, ethics simply put, is what somebody considers to be right and wrong. So another topic for technology and ethics, for example, could be something along the lines of artificial intelligence and its threat to humans or something like that. So it's got the same theme, talking about technology and what is right and what is wrong, but it's a completely different topic. But coming back to this topic, we have the motion. This House supports stricter regulations to protect internet users' privacy. So the motion is saying that they think that there should be more rules surrounding internet privacy to protect people that use the internet from having their information collected by big companies. So does everybody understand what we've talked about here, the difference between topic, theme, and motion?
Yes.
Good, I've heard a yes. Looks like I've got a couple of questions here. Okay, so before we do move on and discuss our next subject, I just do want to make sure that everybody does understand what we've been talking about. Does anybody have any questions? Anything you would like me to explain again or in a different way? Terrific.
No.
I like how Emma's answering for the class, just saying no. Okay, so that's very good.
No.
Okay, so I just want to have a quick little, I want to give you guys a chance to have a go at coming up with a motion for debate. So I'm going to pick a few people. I'm going to give you a debate topic, and I want you to come up with a possible motion for that debate. Okay, so anybody feel free to answer. You can all talk to each other and figure this out together. So work as a team for this exercise, and let's figure out some motions. So our first topic that we need to come up with a motion for is it important to eat healthy food? I'll put that in the chat box.
Yes.
We're not coming up with arguments at the moment. We want to come up with a motion. So is it, oh, I just lost it on my list here. Where is it? Is it important to eat healthy foods? So I'll give you a little hint. So whenever we come up with or whenever we want to announce a motion for debate, we always want to start it with "this house believes that," and then you need to state your argument.
This
So yep, what were you going to say, Star?
This house believes that it is important to eat healthy food.
Very well done. That's correct. Good job, Star. Okay, now I'm going to put another topic up now, and I want you guys to come up with another motion. Okay, Emma, thank you for letting me know. Okay. So this topic, very well done, Ben, that's correct. So new topic. Should kids be required? Oh, I need to learn to spell. Should kids be required to do chores at home? So if that is the topic, that's okay, Emma, you go and switch to another computer. So if our topic is, should children be required to do chores at home? What would the motion be?
Yes, because if they don't help,
We're not looking for an argument at the moment. We're looking at the motion. So what would you say the motion would be? Remember, I've left you a hint in the chat about how to start your Yeah, that's good. Go on.
This house believes that kids should required to do chores at home.
Very good. Now, an important point about the motion that I just want to present to you guys. So Lucia agrees. The kids definitely should do chores at home. Now, remember what I said, I think in your first lesson, is that you won't always find yourself arguing on the team that you truly believe. So you might actually find yourself disagreeing with a topic in a debate where in real life you actually agree with the topic. And just like that, it's actually when you write the motion can go either way. So let's take, should children be required to do chores at home? You could actually write that motion in two ways. I'll write both of them down for you. So the first one is if the affirmative team believes that children should be required to do chores at home, then the motion would be, this house believes that children should be required to do chores at home. So that means the proposition team would be arguing children should do chores at home, and the opposition would be arguing children should not do chores at home. However, you can actually flip the argument in the debate by changing the motion. So the proposition could actually say, so I'm just going to type it down. And the proposition could actually make the motion and say, this house believes that children should not be required to do chores at home. And now, because we've changed the motion, the roles of the teams have actually changed. The proposition would now be arguing that children should not do chores at home, and the opposition would be the ones arguing and the opposition would be arguing that no, children should do chores at home. So based on that explanation, do we all understand how the motion works?
Yes. Yes.
Very good, guys. That's terrific. Now, we'll do one or two more. We'll come up with one or two more motions just to get a bit more practice at coming up with them. So my next topic is reading better than watching television. So if that is the topic of the debate, what is a possible motion that we could make about that topic?
This
So Jenny,
house thinks reading is better than watching television.
very good, Ben. This house believes that reading is better than watching television. Now, what would the motion be if you wanted to argue the other way, that you thought that watching television was better than reading books? What would your motion be then?
This house believes that watching television is better than reading.
Very good. Very good.
This house believes that reading books are better than watching television.
That's correct for the first. So that's correct for the first example. But good. So yes, very good, guys. We're starting to get the motions. That's terrific. That makes me very happy. Okay, so next up, I would like to talk about developing your arguments. So remember, this is just the introduction to the topic. We are going to come back and have like proper lessons on developing our arguments properly. So this is just like a basic introduction to developing our arguments. Now, so debates require participants to construct persuasive arguments for both the proposition and the opposition sides. By developing well-reasoned and evidence-based arguments, debaters can effectively present their perspectives and engage in meaningful discussions. Here are some strategies to help you construct arguments for both sides. So taking away the fancy talk, a debate requires the two teams to come up with arguments that make the audience and the judges believe their point of view. And by writing arguments that are constructed well, so the actual writing of the arguments is good, and the order that you present the arguments is good, and by using lots of evidence as well to back up your claims, debaters can present their ideas very well, and they can have a discussion that can perhaps present a lot of new points of view, or it can present some ideas that people hadn't considered before. So, first of all, we're going to discuss creating arguments for the proposition. So for the team that agrees with the motion. So first of all, you want to clearly state your position. You want to begin by clearly stating your support for the motion, and you want to state your position as the proposition team. Your next strategy is to provide evidence. So you need to back up your arguments with credible sources, facts, statistics, expert opinions, and examples that support your position. So when we say credible, we just mean that we need to use sources that the audience and the judges are going to believe. So we could not, for example, just say in a debate, oh, my friend Johnny over here said that this is the thing, because everyone's going to say, well, who's Johnny and why should his opinion matter? But if you get some facts from, say, a scientist or somebody that knows the topic you're talking about, then the audience and the judges are much more likely to believe your point of view. Our next strategy is we need to use logical reasoning. So we need to use logic and reasoning to demonstrate the validity of our arguments and show how they align with the motion. So using logic, that's basically, oh, I just went blank there for a moment. So using logic is like structuring your arguments well and in a way that makes the most sense to the audience. And reasoning is making sure that your arguments make sense, that it's true, that it agrees with your position, and that, yeah, basically that you've presented the best argument that you can. And using those strategies needs to show the truthfulness, and it also needs to show how your arguments relate to the topic. That's everything covered in that one. Our fourth strategy is anticipate and address counter arguments. So we need to consider potential counter arguments and address them proactively, providing rebuttals to weaken opposing viewpoints. So that means that before we even get to the debate, while we're still at school doing our research and writing our arguments, we need to think about any possible arguments that our opponents could make. And we need to make sure that we have defenses for those arguments ready to go, again, before the debate even starts, because that is going to make it a lot easier on you if you've already thought about what your opponents could say, because then you give yourself a much better chance to discredit your opponent's arguments. So to make the audience and the judges think, oh, I don't agree with them, I agree with these guys. You need to use persuasive techniques. So you need to utilize persuasive techniques such as rhetorical devices, emotional appeals, and impactful language to make your argument compelling. So what that means, there are many different categories of persuasive techniques. Rhetorical devices are questions that you don't have to give an answer to, but the person that asks that question wants you to really think about the answer and think about what that answer could mean in regards to the argument. We have emotional appeals. So that is where you try and make the audience feel a certain way about your argument. So if you're arguing about something that makes you really angry and you're passionate about trying to fix the problem, if you can make the audience feel angry like you through your arguments, you can get them on your side because they feel the same way that you do. And that can be a very powerful tool. And that's something that we're going to have lessons on in the future as well. And impactful language. That is using words that create a very bright picture in the listeners' heads. So if you can make your argument and have the audience and the judges actually see your argument in their head, that can be another very powerful tool, because if they can imagine it, then they can agree with what you're saying. And it just gives you that much more of a chance to win the debate. Okay. Next up, we have structure your arguments. So organizing your arguments in a logical and coherent manner, presenting them in a clear and systematic way. And what that means is that when you organize your arguments, some orders, so some orders that you can put your arguments in will help prove your point much better. So if there is, so say there's 2 arguments that you want to make. One of them is the cause of what's happening, and one of them is the effect of what has happened. It makes much more sense for you to say, for example, I'll come up with an example later, but it makes much more sense for you to say, this is the problem that is happening, and this is the problem that we need to fix. And then afterwards say, because this problem has happened, this is what has happened because that problem has happened. That will be a much more powerful argument to make rather than saying it in the opposite order. So for example, saying, this is what's happened and it's happened because of this. So you can actually hear it that one of them is describing the problem and what has happened, and the other one just kind of sounds like you're making an excuse. So the order that you make your arguments can have a very, very powerful effect on the audience and how they think about what you're saying. And finally, for the proposition, we want to summarize our key points. We want to recap our main arguments at the end of the speech to reinforce their importance and leave a lasting impact on the audience. So you get to speak for somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes. So while you're delivering your speech, you are providing lots and lots and lots of information. And it's very easy for the audience to forget what you've said for point 1 while you're talking about point 2 or point 3, because they're focusing on that now. So at the end of your speech, we will be, let me finish up talking about this and then I'll answer your question. So yeah, it's very important to, at the end of your speech, just to go over all the points that you've made again, so that the audience and the judges can remember what you've said. So that can be a very helpful little trick. Okay, let me have a look here. Okay, so we are on lesson 3 at the moment. Lesson 11 is where we start learning properly how to create arguments. So first up, so before we get to actually crafting the arguments, we need to learn about how the debate, things like how the debates are scored, how to argue as part of a team, and how each member of the team need to craft their argument, because there are actually many different strategies involved in debating. So we want to make sure that we know how, so we want to know how we need to create our argument before we start creating our argument. But there will be exercises and things to practice before that as well. So, okay. Beautiful. Okay, now we want to talk about creating arguments for the opposition. Now, this is mostly similar, but there are a few differences for the opposition. So first of all, you want to clearly state your opposition. You want to begin by clearly stating your disagreement with the motion, and you need to clearly state your stance as the opposition team. This next one is almost the same. So you need to provide evidence. You need to be able to back up your own arguments with credible sources. So remember, those are things like facts, statistics, expert opinions, and examples. But you also want to provide sources that challenge the proposition. So you want to provide information as the opposition that is going to challenge the proposition's point of view. You need to use logical reasoning, except the opposition needs to use logical reasoning to be able to find holes in the proposition's argument. You need to be able to point out the things, you need to be able to point out the things that are wrong with the proposition's argument, and you need to be able to show the weaknesses in their position. You need to anticipate and refute opposing claims. So you need to be ready for the arguments that the proposition will provide. And you need to be able to provide strong rebuttals or strong comeback arguments to undermine their position, and again, to show the weakness in their argument. You also need to use persuasive techniques, and you need to employ these persuasive techniques, except as the opposition, you will need to use techniques like logical fallacy identification. And that means, again, you need to be able to point out the things that are wrong with the proposition's argument. You need to be able to find the holes and make sure that the audience and the judges know what's wrong with what they're saying. You need to use critical analysis, and that means that you need to, so that is another way of saying you need to be able to look at the arguments that are presented by the proposition, and you need to be able to find all the holes in their arguments. And of course, you need well-structured counter arguments to persuade the audience to reject the motion or reject the proposition. So as well as finding the problems with the proposition's arguments, you also need to create strong arguments for your side of the debate. You need to as well structure your arguments by organizing them in a logical and coherent manner, and you need to present them in a clear and systematic way. So that is the same thing as the proposition, where you need to find the best order to put all of your arguments in so that you can present the strongest case possible to make the audience reject the motion so they'll agree with you. And finally, just the same as the proposition, you need to summarize your key points. You need to recap your main arguments at the end of your speech to reinforce their importance and leave a lasting impact on the audience. So again, you're going to be presenting lots and lots of information because you have 3 to 5 minutes to speak, and you can say a lot in 3 to 5 minutes. So at the end of your speech, you need to make sure that you just tell everybody what the points that you made were again, so that they will remember your points of view, and hopefully you will convince them to be on your side. So remember, constructing strong arguments involves a lot of research, critical thinking, and good communication. You need to practice presenting your arguments with confidence and with clarity to enhance your debating skills. So make sure you practice your arguments a lot. Once we start writing them, you need to practice them lots. And the more you practice, the more confident you'll get delivering your arguments, and the more clear you will be able to make your points, and you'll be able to convince the audience more easily. And overall, you will become a better debater. So that finishes off that topic. Okay, so next up, there's no additional homework for today's class, other than just to study all of the handouts that I gave you. Make sure that you have read those, that you understand them. And if there's anything that you don't understand, I want you to think of questions that you can ask me in our next lesson, because our next lesson is going to be a big revision session. We're going to go back over everything we've talked about to make sure that we all understand it. We're going to check your homework that you have done, so your motion and your arguments. So maybe go back over your motions and make sure that you've written them correctly. And remember that phrase, this house believes. That's how you want to start your motions. So do we have any questions before we finish up today? Any questions at all?
No.
Very good. Okay, so you guys have done terrific again today. And from here on out, after this revision session, we're going to focus on one topic per lesson rather than covering 3 and 4 different things. So it will get easier. We just needed these first few lessons to lay down the groundwork, so that now in the lessons, I don't have to explain this stuff anymore, and we'll just be able to start using the debate language in our lessons, and it will get more easy and more natural for you to use these words in conversation. So you guys have done absolutely fantastic today. I'm going to post those. I'm going to post the handouts in your Zalo group for the homework. Study all of them. And if there's anything you don't understand, you'll have lots of time to ask me questions about it in our next lesson. So thank you very much for your attention today, guys. We're going to make a fantastic team of debaters in the not too distant future. You've done fantastic. Thank you for your time, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Goodbye.
Bye, teacher.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, teacher.
I see you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thì nó đẹp lắm
Bye-bye.
Super.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye too.
Thank you, teacher, for the class. Yes.
Con thấy cái tên nó đẹp không? Hả? Con thích tên đó không? Đi với cái. Thích bên này lấy tên đó luôn.
Rồi, tiếp tục học đi.
Kết thúc đi.
Mấy bạn tranh luận với nhau đi.
Chào con nha.
Học tranh luận gì mà thấy thầy nói không mà mấy bạn nói gì chứ?
Đây là chắc là mới những cái buổi đầu là thầy giống như thầy sẽ giải thích về các cái sườn, giống như là thầy giải thích về một cái sườn của cái bài là như thế nào, rồi thầy nói là như vô buổi từ các cái buổi sau là thầy sẽ đưa ra các cái chủ đề á. Từ đó là từ những cái sườn mà thầy lại giải thích trong mấy buổi này là tụi nó sẽ áp dụng và làm những cái chủ đề nữa. Nãy nghe thầy nói như vậy.
Do hôm bữa hai buổi đầu á là chưa có, mà cũng chưa có rảnh, chưa có thời gian, mấy đứa này nó cũng đi xuống á, chưa có thời gian để xem lại cái livestream mà chị Đức chỉ đưa.
Mình cũng có lại thì nói hai buổi đầu thì mình cũng thấy là thầy nói gì mà tụi này nó chưa có cái tương tác, nhưng mà sau lúc nãy ấy, thì nghe thầy nói là kiểu như vậy, nên cái để hai bữa thử coi thử. Thì cái đúng rồi, thì cái gì cũng phải gọi là phải có một cái chút lý thuyết trước rồi tụi nó mới thực hành sau. Thì ví dụ như những cái này mình đứa nào nó nghe ổn, nó mới lại nó gọi là nó cố gắng nó học được cái lý thuyết này thì cũng tốt, áp dụng vào thì cũng tốt. Như nãy là thầy có nói một vài cái áp dụng để mà làm á, để mà khi mà làm được cái chủ đề debate đấy, cũng hay không biết thì tụi nó áp dụng như thế nào.
chưa có theo, để lát nữa rảnh xem lại cái bài bữa trước với lại mấy cái nội dung. Không biết thầy có gửi bài giảng không ta, để cái share mấy cái...
Như có, nên trên cái nhóm Hong-Duc là thầy có sẽ gửi hết các cái bài. Nhưng là buổi đầu là thầy có gửi những cái từ mới, những cái từ mà sẽ dùng trong debate ấy. Chị hỏi trên nhóm là sẽ có người mà đa về là chị sẽ gửi lại, nhưng nó mình có đa về chưa đa về thì phải họ đa về rồi
để các con tự vô đi.
Con open board.
Bạn này mấy tuổi rồi? Bạn Sander mấy tuổi rồi?
9 tuổi.
9 tuổi.
Con mở cái whiteboard được không? Không con.
Kêu nó mẹ tại vì cô Đức nói có bạn nào ra xong rồi vô kêu mấy bạn vô học mà sáng nay mới thông báo bạn mới đầu không chịu học. Hôm nay học có vui không?
Từ buổi sau là thầy sẽ tương tác nhiều đó con cứ học thử thêm nữa. Cái điện thoại của cô nó bằng hết pin rồi, cho nên là chắc là cô dừng Zoom luôn nha. Kiểu là không thấy đường gì nữa rồi đấy. Không thấy đường gì nữa. Cho em luôn nha. Không thấy đường quá. Không bị hết pin rồi.